Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to flip the script on cybersecurity. We're going to see how the absolute best way to build an unbreakable defense is to first learn how to think like an attacker. Let's dive in. So, you've got a firewall, right? You've done your due diligence. You probably think your network is pretty safe, sealed off from the dangers of the internet. It feels secure. But is it really? What if that feeling of safety is just an illusion? What if the real threat isn't trying to smash down your front door because it's already inside? All right, let's start with the way most people think about defense. The best analogy, honestly, is a medieval castle. Now, you wouldn't just build one giant wall around your castle and call it a day, would you? No way. You'd have layers. You'd have a moat, an outer wall, an inner wall, guards. And in the world of cybersecurity, we call that defense in depth. So imagine some data trying to get into your network, into your castle. First up, it has to cross the bridge. That's your router, connecting you to the outside world. Then it hits the massive outer wall, your global firewall, which decides which gates are even open. If it gets through a gate, it meets the guards, the intrusion detection system, who inspect what's coming in to see if it looks suspicious. And even if it gets past all of that, each computer has its own local firewall, which is like having a heavy-duty lock on every single room inside the castle. All of those layers sound pretty solid, right? But here's the catch. They all have one thing in common. They're designed to stop threats coming from the outside. Which begs the question, what happens when the threat doesn't have to break in? What happens when it's already inside, walking right past all your impressive defenses? And this is exactly where we have to flip our thinking. To really understand the risk, we have to stop acting like a defender and start acting like an attacker. You see, an attacker's first move isn't some big, noisy assault. It's quiet. It's reconnaissance. It's about mapping out the territory or, casing the joint. And one of their absolute favorite tools for this is a program called Nmap. So an attacker runs a scan and boom, this is what they see. Now, to most of us, this just looks like a wall of confusing technical gibberish. It's intimidating, right? But to an attacker, oh, this isn't noise. This is a gold mine. It's a treasure map. So let's translate that chaos into what an attacker actually sees. In just a few seconds, they know there are two devices active on the network. One is a PC running, wait for it, Windows Vista. Yikes! That's an ancient, unsupported operating system that is almost certainly full of security holes. The other is a Linux-based router. They can see all the open doors, the ports, and even the exact versions of the software running on them. They haven't attacked a single thing yet, but they now have a detailed blueprint of all the potential ways in. So now the attacker has their map. What's their next move? Are they going to launch a full frontal assault on the main firewall where all the defenses are? No way. Why would they? They're going to do what any smart intruder would do. They're going to walk around the building and look for the easy way in. That one unlocked window someone just forgot about. And this really highlights the biggest challenge in modern security. We're so focused on the classic external threat, the hacker trying to bust through our firewall from halfway across the world. But a much, much more common vulnerability is the internal one. I mean, we live in a bring-your-own-device world now. An employee connects your personal phone to the office Wi-Fi, maybe a phone they've messed with, removing some security features, and just like that, a Trojan horse is inside the castle wall. So what do these unlocked windows actually look like? Well, a lot of the time, it's shockingly simple stuff. It's that internet router that's still using the default password it came with, like admin. It's a Wi-Fi network that has a really weak password, or maybe none at all. It's those unsecured personal devices. And of course, it's out-of-date software that has a well-known, easy-to-exploit vulnerability that just never got patched. This whole idea of finding your own weaknesses before someone else does is the absolute foundation of modern cybersecurity. And it's not a new idea at all. Way back in 1993, these two pioneers, Dan Farmer and Wietse Venema, wrote this: "The best way to test your security is by taking on the role of the attacker." That's it, right there. That's the core philosophy of what we now call penetration testing, ethically hacking yourself to find the flaws first. Okay, so far we've mostly talked about attacking the network itself, the routers, the Wi-Fi, but there's a whole other, much more subtle layer of attack that targets the applications and websites that are running on that network. Let's just take one common example called cross-site scripting, or XSS for short. It sounds complicated, but the core idea is pretty clever. It's a type of vulnerability that lets an attacker inject their own malicious code into a legitimate website, a site that you trust. Then, when other people visit that page, their browsers end up running the attacker's code. So how does this actually work? Well, think of it like a digital pickpocket. First, an attacker goes onto an online forum and posts a message, but it has some malicious code hidden inside. Second, you come along later and you view their post. Your browser sees the code and, not knowing any better, runs it. Third, that hidden code silently steals your session cookie, which is like the temporary digital key that keeps you logged into the site, and sends it straight to the attacker. And finally, the attacker takes your stolen key, goes to the website, and just like that, they're logged in as you. You've been compromised and you never even felt a thing. So let's pull all of this together. From scanning networks with Nmap to exploiting web applications, the point here isn't to make you paranoid. The point is to fundamentally change how you look at security. It's all about learning to think like an attacker. And this leads us to the single most important lesson of all. Security isn't a product you buy. It's not a wall you build one time and then just forget about. It's a continuous, never-ending process. It demands a shift away from a purely defensive, reactive mindset to a proactive one, where you are constantly testing your own systems. And what does that look like in the real world? It means you're the one routinely scanning your own network, finding those open ports before an attacker does. It means you identify and patch vulnerable services. You enforce password policies that are actually strong and get rid of default passwords for good. And, maybe most importantly, you accept that this is a cycle. For every single security hole you fix, another one is always just around the corner. Which brings us to our final thought. You've locked your digital doors, you've barred the windows, and you've built your castle strong and tall. But have you ever stopped and tried picking your own locks?